journey down the rabbit hole of rock and roll's past, present, and future. It's Barstool Rockers with your hosts, Jim Finn and Dan Michaels.
Well, welcome to the frozen tundra here at Barstool Rockers.
Where the bar stools are going to be stuck to the floor and the beverages aren't going to be flowing very well when it's 32 below zero tomorrow.
I've been in the parka for about a week straight now. It's time to...
And the funny part is it's going to be like 30 below tomorrow, and then it's going to be almost 40 degrees on Saturday, so... What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
You're going to talk to people who want to talk is what you're going to do.
This was an incredible one. I was so jazzed about getting this one, and it just kind of fell into our laps, fortunately. But this time around, Kismet, we were able to chat with one of the music world's most definitely innovative and influential musicians. The one, the only.
Steve Hackett. Well, and the tour was announced that he was going to be in Milwaukee and Minneapolis. Throw the line out there, and sure enough.
Yeah, it just wound up being amazing happenstance, and it worked out great. We were able to chat with him. Of course, he has...
you said iconic, right?
Iconic, okay. Yes. Well,
I'm just saying.
Playing in the original lineup of Genesis, alongside Peter Gabriel and Mike Rutherford and Tony Banks and Phil Collins...
That's biggie.
That's a big one.
Well, he played in GTR. His playing style is very unique. You know a Steve Hackett part when you hear it.
Yeah. And have you been able to listen to the new
I've been listening to the new album very intensely.
Yes.
And it's really interesting because you go from things that you would swear was a GTR song to gospel.
We even talked about that in the interview. We talked a little bit about how it's definitely a rock album, but there's all those samplings of world music, and it's quite the little journey that he takes us on.
Well, should we get into it?
Let's dive in. Steve, truly a pleasure to chat with you this morning. First of all,
nice to talk to you too.
Congratulations on creating another incredible Steve Hackett album and for taking us on this magnificent journey of At the Edge of Light. Now, this project is so expansive and cinematic in its scope. Firstly, I want to ask you, how long did it take you to put this all together? And did you record this at your own studio?
Yeah, I recorded it at home. There were quite a lot of shows we were doing around it, so I guess it was put together over an 18-month period, but we weren't just doing that. There was other stuff going on. As I say, lots of world traveling going on. But then it kind of informs the songs. You get that aspect of travelogue and conversations that become songs, and it's a bit like a family album, isn't it? You get those snapshots, and suddenly it turns into a kind of this kind of thing for the inner ear, really, rather than the eye, like a film for the ear, where I visualize it, but I hear it, and it's my way of doing what my dad did. My dad was an artist, and he painted many paintings, many landscapes, and what have you. And I thought that, in a way, I'm more fluent at doing that with music. I couldn't do it with the paintbrush, but that was in the family, and he was very musical and very clever guy, very open to many things.
And what does the title At the Edge of Light mean?
Basically, writing this stuff with my wife, who's the major contributor to the songs, along with me, we were feeling that the world's really in dark times. We're about to go, through this Brexit terrible things, like having your legs cut off, and I've been investing in Europe for so many years, so much time spent there. In a way, I have to remain cautiously optimistic and think that we're on the edge of a breakthrough of all this prejudice that's going on at the moment. I think that the world will pull itself out of the nosedive. We can't just have nationalism at the expense of celebrating the best that everyone can offer around the world. So I figured that, musicians, we ignore borders. We make friends with everyone all around the world, and sometimes get them on our albums. That's what we do. We're ambassadors for that. I guess, in some ways we're kind of itinerant. We're tinkers and travelers. That's what we do. But we ply our wares everywhere, and we get to make friends with people everywhere. And so, that's the subtext, I think, of the album. There is a lot of stuff on it that's social comment. I'd rather say that than political, but I think there's the other things as well on the album, the love songs and the travelogues, descriptions of places. So, and I think in terms of the use of orchestra and world instruments, it's the first, although I've been working with orchestras a lot over the years, I think the first time it's really been fully integrated into it, so that the lines are blurred between what's rock and what's classical instruments and the world music stuff, the tar, the sitar, the duduk, all of these things that normally would not have a place in rock and roll. But it's still a rock album.
Oh yeah.
Just with broadening rock shoulders a little bit more.
Yeah, we were listening to the latest single, Underground Railroad, the other day, and truly a powerful song that really sticks with you after you've listened to it a few times. And of course, it features the phenomenal Durga McBroom and her sister. And can you tell us about what went into that as far as inspiring you to write that song?
Sure. When I was in Wilmington, Delaware, I was walking along the river with my wife. We were looking at the story of Harriet Tubman, who was an escaped slave herself, who was involved with what was known as the Underground Railroad, a network to enable slaves to escape. And then 2 years later, I read a book called Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead, and the book had been recommended by Barack Obama and Oprah Winfrey, and it was already a bestseller. The McBroom sisters, Lorelei and Durga, they didn't know the book, and I gave them a copy of it. We recorded the song, and I said it would be nice if it had a kind of at the beginning a kind of spooky feel and a slight gospel thing, but with a kind of portentous quality to it. So they did that. So it's got that sort of aspect of Americana about it, a ghostly harmonica and songs that come out of tunnels like trains do in a way. And I'm actually very proud of it. I love the fact that the response to it has been so strong so far.
Yeah, it's an amazing song. Can you tell us about some of the other musicians that help contribute to At the Edge of Light?
A lady sitar player called Shima Mukherjee, who's a great virtuoso. That's been incredible. And there are about 4 or 5 different drummers on the album. Actually, there's about 6. It's extraordinary, really. Simon Phillips, who is English but lives in the States, and Nick DiVigilio, also from the States. But then there's a guy from Iceland, Gulli Briam, on drums as well, plus Gary O'Toole, English drummer, and some virtual drumming from 2 different engineers, Roger King and Ben Fenner. But they all did an incredible job, whether it was recorded in real time or mercilessly edited and cut up, and as we do with drum performances these days. But I'm just so proud of the way that the album sounds. The production on it, I think, is the best I've been involved with.
Agreed. Here in the States and Canada, too, we're going to be able to see some very special Steve Hackett shows as you're going to be touring over here later on this year. You'll be performing, this just kind of blows my mind, you're going to be performing the entire Selling England by the Pound album, as well as selections from your Spectral Mornings album, which is celebrating its 40th anniversary, as well as some other new songs you're going to be playing as well. Now, Genesis has such an amazing catalog to choose from. How did you settle on performing the entire Selling England by the Pound album?
I've been doing shows which were kind of half and half. I was doing half Genesis, celebrating the early work, and half solo work. And I've been cherry-picking in recent years over the whole of the band's history. But this time I thought, well, if I was to go for a Grand Slam thing, we just bought a big rabbit out of the hat, which was to do a tour with an orchestra in the UK, so band plus orchestra. and DVD to follow later in the year from that. But I thought really Selling England by the Pound is my favourite Genesis album. And it reminds me of a time when John Lennon said in 1973 that Genesis was one of the bands that he was listening to. And so it made me feel great about that album. I still love it, and I thought, well, what if I do it in its entirety, the whole album, and then also from solo stuff. The first touring band I had, we did Spectral Mornings, which was recorded in Holland, and that was incredibly well received, and that has aspects of world music on it. What with the Chinese harp, otherwise known as the koto, and so I was doing those sort of experiments then. Plus stuff from the new album, which went number 6 in the national charts, At the Edge of Light. It's just gone to number 6 in the midweek charts. So it's the best response to anything I've released in the past 37 years. I think it's the highest chart entry, barring the GTR stuff, which with Steve Howe we had that a while back. But it's lovely to be able to celebrate all that stuff.
Well, it truly is a magnificent album, and again, congratulations on just creating this splendid piece of art. And we look forward to seeing you later on this year in October over in Minneapolis. You're going to be playing a show there. It's going to be an incredible evening. Really looking forward to it.
Thank you. I really look forward to that. Yeah, Minneapolis on the 7th of October. Yeah, we're doing 2 months in the States. Looking forward to it. Couldn't be better. Thank you.
Thank you. It's really been a privilege talking to you this morning.
Lovely to talk to you too. Right. Thank you so much.
Well, there you have it.
An interview, some time spent with Steve Hackett. Something you don't get every day, that's for sure.
Yeah, I really tried to hold it together. Tried to be as calm and cool with that one as I possibly could. It's difficult when you talk to some of these. You don't want to come across all fanboy.
Again, it's the Chris Farley and Paul McCartney interview.
Remember when you were in the Beatles? This will be a great show to see when Hackett comes over to the USA and the Canada dates as well. Of course, he's got a show in Milwaukee.
That's coming up on October 4th.
At the Pabst. And then he's going to be playing the Pantages Theater in Minneapolis on October 7th.
So 2 definitely drivable shows from our hometown here in Nowhereville, USA.
Yeah, and I mean, given the fact that he's going to be performing the entire Selling England by the Pound album and then selections from his Spectral Mornings album, which is celebrating its 40th anniversary, and then other highlights, it's going to be a pretty special evening.
It's going to be a really good show. I have a feeling these are going to sell out. His shows normally sell really quick. So for the folks wanting tickets, I would say get them now for sure. I
would love to see he's doing Cruise to the Edge.
I know that'd be a great one to go. I still want to go there.
Can you imagine? For me, Hackett, Marillion, and I could probably think of like a whole bunch of other.
Oh, I'd put on like Flying Colors or Neil Morse Band or something, just to have fun with it.
With the podcast, we've been blessed with some prog rockers.
Oh yeah.
Very happy about that.
Had Casey on earlier. Steve, Robert Berry can even be in that group too.
Yeah, I consider, no offense to anybody that we've interviewed on the podcast, but I consider this to be one of the big heavy hitters.
Yeah.
Along with Casey.
He's been around forever.
And Tom Peterson of Cheap Trick. Yeah, I mean, it's just...
He's been around. And there's a new Flying Colors album this year. Cheap Trick's got another one coming here soon. 3.2 is going on tour.
Yeah.
So that'll be cool. See? We're right on the front edge, folks. Stick with us, won't you?
Stick with the Barstool Rockers, which, by the way, are we actually going on
Cruise to the Edge? No.
Year?
I don't. I never know. I think this is like the 22nd episode. We've been doing this for how long now? kind of disjointed.
But definitely a perk to the job when we get to have these interviews with these
for sure
amazingly talented people.
So next time we'll gather around the lava lamp and hopefully bring you another conversation.
Works for me.
Or we'll just complain about the Rock Hall of Fame.
Here comes the Dave Marsh commentary. I can feel it now. Well, at least the lava lamp keeps us warm, so We got that going.
Oh, yeah, which is nice.
Thanks for joining us for another Barstool Rockers podcast episode. You got all the details on how to check us out.
Absolutely. You can check us out online at barstoolrockers.com. You can hit our station's website, or you can get us on the iHeartRadio app. You can also get us on Spotify and anywhere good podcasts are found. It's free.
Free. Doesn't cost you anything.
Exactly. And we'd love to have you stop by Apple and, rate or review it and say nice things about it. And, thanks to Joe for the big intro, and thanks to Anastasia for our theme music. And as always, thank you for listening.
So I got that going, which is nice.